So today marks 6 weeks, 42 days since the incident with the Fitzgerald. The commander has temporarily been medically relieved, but there has been no administrative action against him whatsoever or any other member of the crew for the events of that evening that the mainstream media would like you to believe was just simply dereliction of duty. Well, this is where the channel has stepped in, and we have created a place where reality is going to reign. And this picture is a good place to start. It's from an article where they're talking about Benson having been airlifted out and on the 17th and then being released from the hospital on the 19th. So he's been recovering medically from the 19th of June to now. So that should tell you all you need to know about what really happened that evening. They haven't taken one negative step towards this guy whatsoever, or anybody else, regardless of whether this guy was sleeping or not. Not a single other member of the crew has faced any kind of administrative action whatsoever, and they've all had to sign non-disclosure agreements. 6 weeks later. You know, this picture shows it perfectly. Here's the damage. Here's a perfectly pristine part of the ship that shows absolutely no evidence of any kind of a collision whatsoever. And then we have to actually go to another picture to be able to see it in dry dock. Way down here, this patch that has been put over it that took the Navy 3.5 weeks of silence and underwater welding teams and what looks like a lot of scrubbing from scorch marks from the mine, more than likely, that the channel has alleged they've hit. And we've shown a lot of different angles into this investigation as to why that would probably be the case. You know, I pulled up a couple other pictures. They just released the damage and the assessment that it's twice what it was for the USS Cole. And I thought it would be a really great idea to juxtapose the two. And you have to pardon my computer, it's running a little slow today. As you can see here, this is the blast from the USS Cole, and it was below the water line as well as and above. And so there was seawater that rushed in there. USS Cole was a destroyer just like the Fitz was. And so there was an equivalent amount of seawater that got into this hole. It was way bigger, allegedly, than the hole that was below the waterline of the Fitz. So why is the Fitz going to be, could be $500 million to fix it? They're talking about all of the damage to the electronics. Well, weren't there electronics aboard the Cole? I mean, here's that article that just came out a couple days ago. And it's just beyond reality to think that this is the result of an accident, of a collision. The physical evidence doesn't agree with it. The behavior of the Navy doesn't agree with it. And we see the things that have happened now in the world since its departure from the region. We've seen 2 ICBM launches from North Korea that, from all reports, were very successful, and 1 from Iran. So they obviously are feeling empowered because they've figured out a way now to get rid of their asset in the region that prevents them from launching successfully. I mean, I wish I could bring up a video to show you guys of what 700 pounds of high explosives can do to point blank range, to this kind of steel. There was some years ago, the Mythbusters crew took a cement truck out in the middle of nowhere and loaded it up with I think it was Semtex or something like that, and there was nothing left of a cement truck. And to say that this collision in the middle of the night that neither crew was able to avoid and that nobody saw and that nobody had any warning of, it's just, it's sad. I mean, you can see here too, very, very clearly, how far below the waterline the damage to the USS Cole was. They would have had the same flooding and the same issues as the Fitz did. I would allege they would have had more because of the force of the impact. I mean, this killed 17 people, injured 39. There's just no way you can compare the two. Yet they're saying this most recent one is twice as expensive to fix. And to show exactly how strange this has been, here in Jacksonville, and this is from Jacksonville.com, and this was right after the accident occurred, a retired Navy admiral who had been the commander of a boat just like this came out and said, and I quote, "I think what we will see pretty quickly is accountability on the part of the Navy," said James Stavridis. "I think you're going to see the commanding officer lose his job almost immediately." Well, he was wrong. He was absolutely wrong. The guy didn't lose, to this day hasn't lost his job. He's only been temporarily medically relieved. He still is the commander of the boat, ship, whatever. And when you look at what this man said, he said, "Bottom line, I think we are going to find out there were mistakes both on the bridge of the destroyer and the bridge of the motor vessel Crystal." He said that he believed that the Navy ship would have been frantically calling the Crystal. Well, we know that's wrong. So here's a Navy admiral who used to be a commander of this exact kind of ship when he made his initial assessment of this being 6 weeks later provably wrong. So much for the experts. So much for waiting for the report. Because this was not an accident. This was not a collision. There was a whole bunch of factors that happened that night. This electrical damage, you know, it is a... you folks that have come here and talked about the EMP and I've leaned away from it, boy, I tell you what. I have tried to stay away from the issue in the Black Sea because there have been conflicting reports about what happened with the Khibny. And I haven't made a video about it yet. But I am leaning more toward it now. I really am. Because that's the only thing that would have caused that level of electrical damage. If the sea, you can't say it was the seawater because it would have done the same thing to the coal. It would have done the exact same thing. The hole was much bigger, much more pronounced. So why this is twice as expensive because they're saying it's electronics makes absolutely no sense. So I think we might have to the next time do a video on the Khibny, the incident in the Black Sea with the destroyer that got completely disabled. That the Navy has disavowed it. There have been conflicting stories about sailors that had retired or different things. So I didn't want to get into it because there's really no good way to verify it. But what we're seeing here with the Fitzgerald, I don't know how you could say anything else other than this ship did not have the ability to communicate or move when it got hit. Because we know it didn't have the ability to communicate, or they didn't want to communicate. One of the two things have to be true because of what the captain said. He said he tried to contact it, tried to flash his lights and do all this kind of thing to alert them. And then we also have this lack of communication to the U.S. Navy. After the event, the Navy had to hear about it something like, what, third hand? Yeah, the Philippine crew talked to the Coast Guard of Japan, and then the Coast Guard of Japan had to talk to the Navy, and it was delayed 50 minutes. I mean, that just smacks of a lack of communication, or the ability to. And there's only one thing I can think of that would cause that massive loss, and that would be that weapon that was aboard the MiG in the Black Sea. So I think I'm going to try to put something together on that, and as much input as I can get from you guys on that, I would really appreciate, because that on top of, you know, what I've alleged with the mines, it's not an either or thing. You know, they might have a mine that can do this now, or there might have been some type of a pod or weapon dropped from a plane that could have caused the damage below the waterline and caused, or above the waterline and also caused the EMP blast that knocked out the communications. So thank you very much, everyone, for the support. Missed a day yesterday. I just had some personal things to deal with. But like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you.